and something that would take up most of my time. What I did was I decided that working in the Capitol would be a fun idea and a good experience. So I think it was a Thursday afternoon after school. I went home and I called about 30 different legislators. Hey, my name is Michael Ofek. I'm interested in working for your office this summer. Can I send you my resume? Previously, I had worked on my resume with a friend of mine who's a lobbyist that I met through my synagogue. And after perfecting that, I decided, okay, time to put it to the test. So after sending out my resume to approximately 30 different people, I got 2 responses, 2 callbacks, both wanting an interview. So the next week, I went in for an interview for both offices, and they both wanted me. So now I had to make a decision. The offices were Assemblyman Ofek's office, that's 65th District, and the other one was Joe Miller. Joe Miller he's also an Assembly member. They're both Republican offices. I wasn't necessarily looking for Republican or Democratic, I was just looking for a good experience. But his office was much smaller and there wasn't as much traffic going on. He was newer to the system. So I decided that working for the other office would have been a better choice. The other office also wanted me for more days every week. I ended up working 3 days every week, starting the Monday after school got out until the last Wednesday of summer vacation. And I clocked in over 200 hours of working there. Actually, one thing that I can say that definitely made a difference in that office was I was the first high schooler they had ever had. And I worked alongside with a sophomore from Berkeley. And I don't know, she was kind of like my friend and we kind of like stuck together. And we were always assigned to write all kinds of press releases and do all kinds of research. So whenever she would have some trouble, I would have her back. And whenever I had some trouble, I'd, hey, can you help me with this? Send her a small email and she'd be right on it. So that was actually really cool to have someone else as an intern working with me. She was actually on a program, a special program for Berkeley, and she was actually really surprised that she got the spot. After hearing that, I was kind of overjoyed that they considered me for even having me in their office. So that was something that was really cool. What I did there was, I mainly did a lot of research. When I came, they had already had a lot of bills that they wanted to get passed and a lot of stuff that was going on. So, for example, one thing I did was, they have a long file of just explaining the bill, and they had gaps and they needed research and certain information. So what they would have me do is they'd say, okay, Michael, we need you to make a fact sheet for Assembly Bill 33, for example. And I'd be like, okay, can you send me a template? They'd be like, sure. It was actually a very nice office and they really walked me through every step of the way. Kind of like, okay, here, do this, and then they let me kind of like work on it for hours, and then I'd go back, here, this is what it is, this is all wrong, this is what you have to do. And then they really walked me through it, and they really taught me everything I needed to know, which was really cool to have someone, it was a true mentor, that he really cared about my experience. One thing that I pushed in that office was going out for lunch. Sometimes they'd go out for lunch and sometimes they didn't, but I made it a point to always ask if anyone wanted to go out with me to lunch, because for me, my experience was like, okay, I want to get to know what the political system is, the ins and outs, and the way you get to find out what really everything is about is by talking to people, like personally, hey, tell me, what do you think about this, and how do you get around? The coolest part was my mentor took me down to the floor at one point in the first couple weeks, and he's like, you know what? I know a shortcut. And he took me through this like strange hallway to this like unknown staircase with another elevator and just like really cool ways to like get around and really avoid the traffic that you have. Actually, one of my favorite parts was watching other people come in on tour groups and being kind of on the other side of things, seeing, you know, I had been on tours before through Civitas, and seeing the groups of students and being on the other side was very cool. It was very cool. It was like, that's me now. So that was something I liked. Also something I did was I wrote a lot of press releases. Every time something would happen in the office, we would have to send out a press release. So usually they'd have the interns write the press releases. And so I'd type something up and then they'd be like, okay, this is actually okay, fix this, put this, add this, remove this. And I actually brought with me some stuff that I wrote. So yeah, just a glance. They're all different, so just to show you kind of what I have worked on. You guys can pass these around. I apologize. Yeah, but and then my favorite part was when they told me, "Hey, we were invited to write a guest editorial," and I was like, "Cool, what does that mean?" They're like, "Okay, it's an opinion piece, and we want to push this opinion." So they gave me the job of doing that, and I think I'm not sure who has it, but I wrote a piece about the break they had in the summer, and that all the assembly members go back to their district and kind of hang out. And my assembly member, he was the chair of the Veterans Affairs Committee, and he was really trying to push for more action in the Capitol and trying to get things done. So he wasn't very happy that all these legislators were going back home to relax poolside with their families. And so he had me write a piece about it. And I think a cool thing about writing articles and press releases was later finding them on the internet in all kinds of publications saying, "Hey, I wrote that." And I even had a couple of pieces that were published in their entirety, which is very rare, I guess they told me. So that was pretty cool. Also, towards the end of my summer, we had a caucus at the Capitol, and I helped run that. That was pretty cool. We had all these different kind of people coming in with ideas and what to do what, so I helped organize that. Let's see. We became really friends in the office. I became kind of close with them. They were my friends on Facebook, and I still talk to them every now and then. The best part, though, that I have to say, the most addicting part of politics and the most rewarding aspect as well, was getting a bill passed. The sense of getting something done and impacting the world, actually making a difference in the real world there's no way to describe it. And and they offered me a position for next summer, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to go back for that exact reason. I'll tell you a little about, the main thing we worked on, just a little short thing, was there was a big missing child bill package that we were working on, and I got to speak with all these parents of abducted children and all these horror stories, and getting the motivation to really make a difference was way too easy. I was just like, how can I help? And I felt that we really made a difference. So that was pretty cool. And I wrote about that in my college applications, and hopefully that'll show something. Now let's see. So this is the assembly member I worked for. This is in the. If you ever been to the Capitol, they have a whole section for a memorial for veterans. They have an award ceremony going on that my office prepared. And that was a certificate that we had on Schwarzenegger.
Maybe it would be good if you turned off a couple sets of lights. It's pretty dark. So.
Yeah, and if you want to advance the slides, you just tap the board with a stylus there.
Thank you.
All right. This was actually a really cool part that I wasn't expecting to get. Over here is a picture right here of the dome. This is up top here. Because I was in an office, I could schedule VIP tours of the building. So I got to go on this very special and tours that not really everyone goes to. Actually, my grandparents came in from Israel to visit and say hello over the summer, and I decided to show them what I was doing at work. And I went in almost unannounced, and I went up to the office. "Hey guys, how are you doing? These are my grandparents. It's possible to get a tour." And almost within minutes, we had a tour guide come up, and we had a private tour of the entire building. So that was pretty special. And now I will talk about my senior project. My senior project was, I wanted to relate it to my internship, but because the office I worked for was in the 65th district, which it's kind of like parts of Riverside, Yucaipa Valley. It's Southern California. There's nothing really there, honestly. But because they didn't really have anything for me to do with them, I was like, okay, well, what has to do with politics? Getting the vote out. And since I had turned 18 over the summer, and since voting was something that I had been talked to about, I thought, hey, I could definitely talk to other people about it. And so what happened was I went out and I got a lot of voter registration guides and voter registrars, and I had people sign up to vote. I had a table in Second Saturday, and actually that was actually the most successful. I got about 20 people to sign up and vote, and they looked they were actually going to go vote. So that was, I felt really accomplished there. I had maybe around 5 or 6 kids around the school who had just turned 18. I was like, hey, fill this out, we have an upcoming election. And then I also went to a couple classes, and I gave like a 30 to 40 minute speech about all the propositions that we were going to be voting on, and what they were, and I gave them account of my personal experiences in the Capitol. Because the problem was, even though we do have the mock election in the school, you find that a lot of students don't really know what everything is about. So you have to have students that go out and talk to the classes about what it is they're voting on, so that their vote means something. So I did that. And then I also assisted with 2 other senior projects, Alex Yankow and Zach Smith, with their mock elections. It was 2 different mock elections. One was it was a real mock election, something that would, how you would actually go to vote. So we had booths set up, and we had like voter counters. And the other one was a school-wide vote, where we had these voters right here, just a simple like check the box, and we ran to all the classes in the school. We sent that to the Secretary of State. One thing I was trying to focus on in my senior project was making politics more relevant to students our age. I mean, I think one of the main problems we have is that students my age and younger, politics isn't relevant to them. They don't think that it affects them as much as it actually does. So what I tried to do was go out and explain to them really why it was important to vote, and what it means to be in a democracy, and why that's important. And so that's my senior project. So here I have the ballot counters, and these booths and the students inside. One thing that I have to say is that throughout this entire experience, Civitas has really taught me the skills I needed to succeed. Even from the very beginning of Civitas freshman year, we learned about the political system and legislation and how bills are passed. So I had a real upper hand going into my internship because I already knew so much. And honestly, I think that's why I was able to work there, is because I already had the skills, and they didn't need to teach me as much as maybe someone else who was my age that wasn't in Civitas. Also, my favorite part was writing speeches. I didn't talk about this earlier, but in my internship, they'd always have me, I'd do all the research, and I'd make the fact sheets, and then they'd say, okay, you know the stuff well, can you write a little short speech for the assembly member to present on the floor? And that was the coolest thing, because I'd write this like 2-paragraph long thing, and hey, is this okay? Yeah, this is great. As if it was nothing, and they gave it over to the assembly member, and then we watched him on the TV. There's like TVs in every office, and you watch him on the floor, and I'm looking at what I wrote, and he's saying it word for word, and I'm like, wow, that is cool. That is cool. Also, towards the end of my internship, they gave me a lot of responsibilities. More so than I had in the beginning. For example, we needed a lot of bill amendments because we were cooperating with other offices to get them passed. So what happened was they have, okay, here Michael, go do these bill amendments. Okay, so I have to go and you make just a ton of copies of every paper, and you have to go from one office to the other, and you go down to the floor and you say, hey, I want to make bill amendments. And that was cool. Actually, the best part was while I was on the floor, sometimes you would look up at the balcony, and there were the tour groups saying, this is where the legislators, they sit and they legislate. This is where the action happens. And I'm standing there, part of the action. And that was my favorite part. And that's my presentation. And I'd love to take any questions.
If you want to flip the lights back on.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mike.